You're listening to the Effective Statistician, episode number 51, How to Get Most Out of a Conference. An interview with Kate Taylor, the chair of the PSI conference in 2019. Welcome to the Effective Statistician with Alexander Schacht and Benjamin Pieskes, a weekly podcast for statisticians in the health sector designed to improve your leadership skills, widen your business acumen, and enhance your efficiency, which is actually the topic of today. The PSI conference is coming up. It's from the 2nd to the 5th of June in London, and the early bird rate is approaching soon. It ends on the March of the 20th of 2019, of course. I have already registered and will present there as well. So come to London and then let's meet there. It's really the best conference for statisticians in the pharma world, or if you're working for a CRO, I can think of. So register now, save the early bird deadline, and come to London. In this episode, we talk about how to network, how to prepare for the conference, how to follow up after the conference, really to maximize the impact you can have from the conference. We also talk about a couple of specific topics around the PSI conference of 2019 itself, of course. Well, surely we have the best person for that on the interview. This podcast is created in association with PSI, a global member organization dedicated to leading and promoting best practice and industry initiatives. Join PSI today to further develop your statistical capabilities with access to the special interest groups, video-on-demand content library, and free registration to all PSI webinars, as well as much more. Visit the PSI website at psiweb.org to learn more about the current PSI activities and become a PSI member today. Hello, welcome to another episode of The Effective Statistician, and this time I'm speaking with Kate Taylor, who is the chair of the PSI conference for 2019, which is in London this year. Hi Kate, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Alexander. How are you?
Very good. I'm quite excited about this conference. It's one of my highlights every year for a couple of years now, since I've first been at the Berlin PSI conference, and that got me really excited. How did you actually get involved into PSI?
So I actually originally got involved in PSI when I started working at my current company about 5.5 years ago now, I think. So when I joined the company, a lot of people in the department were already involved in PSI, and my supervisor really encouraged me to get involved as well. So I actually originally started off in the CALC team, so the Careers and Academic Liaison Committee, having lots of interactions with universities and schools, and helping organise their MSc Careers Fair, things like that. So that was how I originally got involved in PSI. And then I was approached by Nick Manumley a couple of years ago, who was the scientific committee chair at the time. And he said, we're looking for somebody to join the scientific committee to take on the role of the conference chair in a few years' time. Would you be interested? And I absolutely jumped at the opportunity, to be honest. It sounded really exciting. I'd been to a few PSI conferences by that point. So that was kind of how I got involved and took on this role.
What was so exciting about the role for you?
I think just because it's kind of PSI's flagship event, so to speak. And I'd had such a good time at previous conferences that any chance to be involved in, sort of helping put together the program, or the social aspects of the conference, it's just found it really exciting. And I know in a way I quite like doing sort of organising type things. So it was a role that kind of appealed to me quite a lot.
That's great. It's always great to kind of fit the right projects to the right people. That's usually a recipe for success. So in terms of your, let's say, day-to-day work, what are you doing there?
On the conference, do you mean?
No, on the outside of the conference, outside of PSI.
Oh, okay. So I work for Amgen at the moment, and I work on one of their marketed products on leukemia, and I'm the EU lead for that product. So whilst I do some sort of, bread and butter statistical support for ongoing clinical trials, I also do some work along with supporting health technology analyses, regulatory submissions, and things like that.
Yeah. That's the HTA area is also my area where I'm doing my day-to-day business. As we are recording this, I'm just in the boat of switching from one company to the other. So, okay. Let's get back to the conference. You mentioned that there's a couple of social activities, and that is what the PSI conference also makes so valuable, because there's lots of statisticians there that have come from a pharma background, that are working for CROs, and that is, in that kind of perspective, pretty homogeneous group with lots of common interests, lots of common challenges. So it's really great to network at these different social events. So let's first speak about what kind of social events are actually there at the conference.
So we've got quite a few planned for this year, which is great. So it's really exciting stuff. So on the Sunday night, so technically before the conference even starts, there will be drinks with the scientific committee on the Sunday night at our HQ hotel for the conference. So that's the Park Plaza in London Waterloo. So we've booked out their terrace, weather permitting. Obviously, this is the UK. So anybody who's arriving to the conference a bit early on that Sunday night is more than welcome to join us for some very informal drinks and chat on the Sunday night. So I find that's a really nice way to get the conference started. And then, on Monday morning, for those people who are up for it, some people within the scientific committee usually organise a Monday morning run. Now, this does start at sort of, I think, about 6:15 in the morning. So you do have to get up that little bit early. But it's a really great opportunity, I think, to get to know a group of like-minded people. I mean, absolutely any ability is welcome. I fully confess to I am not a good runner, but I will definitely go along for that on the Monday morning.
I
tried to go
I'm doing it as well.
Good. I tried to go in Amsterdam last year, but I arrived, I think it was about a minute late and the group had gone. But there were a couple of other people who turned up late as well, so we couldn't work out where everybody was, so we just had our own little run, just like the three of us. So it was still a really nice way to get to know people.
Yeah, it's in Amsterdam was really, really a beautiful run, and I'm pretty sure Paul will find a very, very nice course this year again.
Yeah, up and down the Thames probably, which will be really nice.
Yeah, we had a similar run 2 years ago up and down the Thames, which was really nice. Yeah. Okay, that's a Monday morning. What happens later in the week?
So Monday night, we've got another social event. So we've booked Tattershall Castle, which is basically like a pub on a boat, moored up on the Thames opposite the London Eye. So it should be some spectacular views, and it's a really excellent opportunity to have a few drinks and some food with everybody attending the conference in a really sort of informal setting. I mean, I've had some brilliant conversations in previous years at this Monday night social event. In fact, I think last year in Amsterdam, I managed to get some people to sign up for organising conference sessions for this year. So, yeah, these sorts of things are really valuable, and it should be a really good night. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, these kind of things are really great to meet former colleagues, to meet people from CROs, or when you're working for a CRO, from sponsors that you work with on a day-to-day basis, and also get introduced into completely other people that possibly work on similar challenges. And as I said, it's a lot of kind of like-minded folks, so it's really, really easy to get into the same, have common understandings, common topics, common challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think you and I probably first met for the first time because we were introduced through your current colleague and somebody that I used to work with. So just an example of how you can expand your network at these kind of events.
Yeah, absolutely. I lots of people approached me, and some good friendships actually developed through that. So that's very nice. And also a couple of interesting networks to, work on methodological things. So, have discussions about that, what, your challenges are there. So it's always very, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a Monday night. What happens later in the week?
So Tuesday night, we have our sort of main social event, so to speak, which is the gala dinner on the Tuesday night. So an excuse for everybody to get a little bit dressed up and have a really good time. So the gala dinner this year will be in the QE2 Centre, so the same place that the conference takes place. And it'll be in the plenary room, as it has been in previous years, but they've got some spectacular views from London from that room. I really think there's no better way to socialise and network with your colleagues than over a few drinks and hopefully a session on the dance floor later in the evening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That actually was really, really good in Amsterdam as well. I really enjoyed that one. And it's a really nice setup also from the gala dinner, as you're sitting around larger tables. So that makes it very, very nice to speak to lots of other people.
Because I guess particularly if there's only a couple of you from one particular company, then you will inevitably end up on a table with other people from other companies. Just a really good way to get to know other people. It's very easy to stand up and go and speak to other tables as well. I know there was a lot of that done in Amsterdam. I just hope that 2019 can live up to the 2018 gala dinner, because that was my personal favourite from all the previous years I've been at the conference.
Yeah, that was really an amazing setup in this beautiful hall in Amsterdam with the light and everything like that, and an amazing DJ actually.
Yeah, he was definitely one of a kind, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And the party was really, really good.
It was, yeah. But, it's the people who really make the party. So, looking to all this year's attendees to help me get up and get the party started.
Okay, very good. And then the Friday comes, and then the Wednesday comes, and we don't have a special event there. But of course, throughout the conference, we have lots of breaks. We have the lunch breaks. And we also have the poster session.
Yeah, so the poster session is always particularly good as well. Again, actually a reasonably informal session. People tend to stand by their posters. Lots of opportunity there, I think, even more so to talk about, the statistics and why we're there, and looking at people's methodologies and what trials they've been working on, what therapeutic areas they're interested in. A really, I think, much, in some ways, easier situation to strike up those sorts of conversations.
Yeah, and you will see basically who's presenting, because before the poster sessions there's the 60 seconds presentations of the posters, which is an awesome session.
Yeah, that's one of my personal highlights. I'm always really excited to see what people have come up with. There's usually some very imaginative ways that poster authors come up with to try and get people sort of really excited about their poster. In
Yeah.
fact, Alexander, I think you yourself were involved in showcasing some software by strutting your stuff across the stage last year. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping something similar this year.
That was really, really awesome. Yeah, Claire Britton
Yeah,
recruited me for some acting there.
yeah, forced you into it. Yeah, and I've even seen people get chocolates involved as bribery as well. So yeah, I'm hoping to see what people come up with this year.
Okay, very good. So these are all the kind of different networking events, and we are talking about the PSI conference, but most other conferences also offer lots of these networking events. And of course, that it comes for a reason, because I think the speaking to other people, learning from them, building relationships is really, really important for long-term success, because I think you just get lots of other opportunities through that. Opportunities for new jobs, opportunities for new ideas, opportunities to help each other. And that is really one of the great things about PSI. It's this community that is very open and very nice to approach others in. What are kind of other benefits of networking that you can think of, Kate?
I mean, at the PSI conference, we also have these sort of excellent opportunities for you to meet the exhibitors as well in the exhibition hall. And I mean, you've mentioned if you were looking for a new job, then it's an excellent place to do so. But I think if you're meeting the exhibitors, you don't have to be looking for a new job. I think it's a really great opportunity to have an informal chat with other people in the industry, see what other companies are up to. What are they working on? What software are they using? What are they thinking about trial design? What's coming up in the future? And actually, a lot of them have some really great games and activities to get involved in as well. So I know, like last year, somebody had a Scrabble board. There was a quiz going on. I think someone had a Nintendo SNES competition. I just think all these sorts of things are really fun, and a really good way to sort of break the ice and get people networking and talking about things.
Yeah, and this exhibition hall is open throughout all the breaks, so that's also a very, very nice networking opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you never know. Maybe you meet your next supervisor, or maybe you need next customer or the next vendor that you're working with. So this industry tends to be rather small, so you will run into people quite often. So that's just very, very nice. Okay, so in terms of networking, how do you do that personally? Do you have any kind of challenges with that?
Well, yeah, I guess I have a few sort of tips and things that I try to do when I'm networking. I think for me, the biggest one is to try and just make yourself look approachable. So, I mean, obviously, we're at a conference, we're away from our day jobs for 3 days. We all need to check work email occasionally. But I really think that by sort of circulating, looking open, looking engaged, it's much easier for you to go and talk to people or for people to approach you than if you have to be on your phone or your laptop the whole time. Um, I tend to go and talk to people about what their favourite sessions have been so far, or maybe what they're looking forward to in the conference. Not only for me is that something that people are generally quite enthusiastic of speaking about, but from a slightly selfish perspective, that helps me to shape future conferences, to see what people have been enjoying, maybe changes we can make in following years and suggestions that people have. I think it's just really also all about being not afraid to talk to people that you don't know. There will be other people there who don't know anybody there. And these are the sorts of people that we really want to welcome into the PSI community, and get them involved and engaged and get them to come back in following years. And I think also to not be afraid to talk about something that isn't statistics. I mean, we all need a break from it. It's can be sort of long, intense, but brilliant days at the PSI conference. So sometimes we need a break from statistics. There are other things that we can talk about as well.
Yeah, I think lots of statisticians are more on the introvert side. So everybody is, a little bit has this kind of tendency to more be on its own. And just knowing that most of these people will tend to be more introvert makes you feel kind of safe, because it's in everybody is up against the same let's say social barriers. And I think it's just good to kind of flex the style a little bit and approach people that are standing alone at a desk or something like this. Is always nice to speak to these people and learn what they're up against. And I think the question about the conference sessions is a great starter. But I also had really nice discussions about football at the PSI conference. Speak about non-statistical things. So that is a very good way. I also really recommend to prepare for the conference in such a way that you don't have too many business calls throughout the conference, because that really diminishes the overall value you get from the conference. And as you said, if you're in the breaks always on the phone or on the laptop, you don't have actually a chance to get to also of the networking opportunities, which is a huge benefit of the overall conference. And missing on that is really a miss.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, sort of one of the main reasons why I go to the conferences is for the networking opportunities. So yeah, I agree with you. I try to avoid having any calls at all when I'm at the PSI conference. And if I need to do an urgent scroll through my emails, I tend to leave it till I'm back at the hotel, either later at night or early in the morning. But I mean, I'm quite lucky in that really there don't tend to be many things for me that can't wait. I appreciate that's not the same for everybody, but yeah, I think if you're coming to the conference and your company is investing that money in you attending, then really you need to be present in the conference at the moment. I think otherwise you just regret it otherwise.
Yeah, it's just a waste of money and time. In terms of that, one other tip is, for me, I also need kind of my own time. So I look into the overall schedule and see that, okay, between the sessions and the evening events, there's usually a little bit of time where I can just be by myself. And that's a good time to kind of relax, get a little bit of additional energy again, and then have, fun in the evening again.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, we're in a conference centre again this year, like we were in Amsterdam. So actually, if you're staying in the PSI HQ hotel, there's a sort of 15-minute walk to that hotel. And I found in Amsterdam last year that was a really nice part of the day, actually, to have that little walk between the two places. Like you say, you have your own time, you get that bit of fresh air, get yourself prepared for the day or the evening if you're heading back later.
Yeah, so I think that is also very good in terms of networking for introverts, especially having this, planning for this silent time, so to say, where you can be just with yourself. That helps to recharge batteries. Okay, any other kind of tips you have in terms of networking?
Oh, the other thing that I wanted to mention that we hadn't brought up yet was actually networking opportunities for people who are young in their career. So we have a career young statisticians session at the conference where the presenters will be career young. But following that, the Careers and Academic Liaison Committee often put on a career young networking event afterwards. So they try and get all the people who are career young in the conference, and that's sort of about 5 years experience or less, together in a room, just so they have an opportunity to network with their peers They play some fun ice-breaking games, and there's tea and coffee available, like there are in the wider breaks. And I just think that's a really nice opportunity to get to know people who are at the same career level as you. And I've attended this event in previous years, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, that's an awesome event. Okay, with that, let's go a little bit into the conference preparation part. What do you do in terms of preparing for the conference as a participant, not as an organizer, but as a participant?
I mean, I guess firstly, what I would do is make sure I got registered early. So the early bird deadline is the 20th of March this year. So always good to get in and get registered, get yourself sorted early on. The scientific program for the conference is available online at the PSI website. So go in and check that out, see which sessions are interesting to you. And then usually around April time, we release the conference app. And this is one of my favorite new additions to the conference in the last few years. Last year, we had a really, really good app. It has so many things on it to help you get prepared for the conference and to use during the conference as well, actually.
Yeah, I have used this app quite extensively, also for interactions with people. It has this nice chat feature in there, which is, a little bit like a mini Facebook for the conference.
So it has like an activity stream. You can see all your colleagues' photos, any discussions that are going on. That's my favorite, probably, part of the app, just for people to really feel like they're interacting with the conference. But you can also get things like pictures, bios, abstracts for all of our speakers. There are profiles of other conference attendees, so you can scroll through the list, see who's attending the conference. There'll be conference floor plan maps. There's a map of where all the exhibitors are. There'll be a map of London with all the key locations for the conference. You can rate your favorite sessions. You can make notes within the app. It has a list of all of our very generous sponsors. Oh, what else? A link to the PSI Twitter page, and lots of useful links for upcoming PSI events and things as well. So really a one-stop shop for almost everything conference.
Yeah, and I use the app also for planning my conference in terms of which sessions I would like to attend. So it has this feature where you can basically mark your sessions, and so that you get a kind of conference calendar for all the different sessions you would like to attend. So that helps throughout the conference to know, okay, now I need to go into this room or that room, and doing that.
Yeah, I used it for the poster session as well last year. So when they were doing the 60-second poster talks, all the posters I thought were really interesting, you can go into the app and star those, so you have a list of numbers that you can go and find in the poster session.
That's a nice tip that I didn't know about. Okay, awesome. Yeah. So that helps to make the best of the conference, and all that is available very, very soon, which is a big advantage of this conference. Sometimes I attend conference and then they have these not very telling titles like case studies or something like this, where it's really difficult to find out if that session is something for you. Here it's much easier because you can see all the abstracts and everything. So it's very, very formative. Yeah. And it's good to kind of get organized a little bit early so that you have less stress at the conference. Another thing to prepare for the conference is to make sure that your calendar is empty, as I said earlier, that you have kind of solved all the different things up front, that you put out of office notifications in, and that. What I usually also have is I let my colleagues know in advance through some note in the email signatures that I'm offline during these days. So that just sets expectations differently, that you're not, expected to call into lots of meetings during that time.
Yeah, I always provide a backup email and contact phone number for each of my studies on my out of office email. say when I'm going to be away, that I'm at a conference, and I'll be back on whichever day it is.
Yeah. And it's also good to kind of, what I sometimes do, I look through the attendee list. I usually do that a little bit closer to the conference and see kind of what people I would like to meet and have a follow-up with. That's, just gives me a little bit.
Yeah, I've done
that gives me a little bit more of a, let's say, pressure to actually interact, because I'm also tend to be introvert sometimes.
Yeah, well, I'm the same as well. But yeah, I tend to do that. So, like you say, you can use the app, go into that, and make a sort of list of key people or influencers who you'd like to sort of go and have a chat with. So, for example, if I need some expert guidance on a new phase 1 study that I'm working on, I'll go and seek out James Matcham, have a conversation with him. If I want to go and have a chat about all things Bayesian, go seek out Alan Bedding. You've got a missing data problem, maybe go around, you can find Michael O'Kelly, or you know what, actually, if people are interested in getting involved in PSI, come and find me. Go and find Nigel Howitt, our current PSI chair, or Lucy Rowell, who's the next chair. There'll be a lot of members of the scientific committee there as well. All of our profiles will be available on the app with lots of nice photos, so hopefully you know what everybody looks like as well.
Yeah, actually, I think you can pretty much approach anybody that sits on the board of PSI if you want to learn more about them. About all the different opportunities. And by the way,
we recruit. Sorry.
If you are attending the PSI conference, you are already becoming a member of PSI as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So you have access to all of the member benefits for PSI as well.
Awesome. So is there anything else you're doing to prepare for the conference?
Yeah, so I guess the other thing that you can do to prepare for the conference is to attend one of our pre-conference training courses as well. And these, I think, are excellent networking opportunities as well, because it's a whole afternoon with a slightly smaller group of people. So perhaps a slightly less intimidating setting, so to speak. So we have 2 pre-conference training courses this year, which both look excellent. One's being run at the QE2 and one's being run at the HQ Hotel. So there's one on stated preference methods, so eliciting patient preferences in the age of personalised medicine, and that's being run by the PSI Benefit Risk Special Interest Group, following on from their very successful session last year. And then the other one is the evidence synthesis for clinical trials, so using historical data and extrapolation, mostly using one of their R packages.
Yeah, and in terms of the benefit risk one, just stay tuned for next week's episode, because there we will speak with Maria and Cheryl, who are both organizing this together with a couple of others, this benefit risk session. And you will learn more about benefit risk and introduction to benefit risk, as well as what you can expect from this session in next week's episode. So just stay tuned to that. Okay, so
yeah, I won't provide.
Okay, so now let's go into the after conference follow-up actions. What do you usually do after the conference?
So I guess another thing that I should have said in terms of preparing for the conference before I get into how I follow up is remembering to take my business cards. I know we live in a world of social media and things, but I still find a lot of value in taking my business cards and exchanging that information, so somebody has something physical to hold on to. So when I'm then after the conference, I quite possibly have a number of business cards from people that I've met. I might send a follow-up email or a LinkedIn invite talking about what we talked about at the conference, just kind of whatever follow-up is appropriate. Let's keep in touch, or here's what I'm working on. Let me know how that paper goes that we talked about, those sorts of things. I guess it's also a big part of what we do in my company following the conference is feeding back to our colleagues. Yeah. So we're encouraged to put together a presentation about what our favourite sessions were, so we can feed that back to everybody who wasn't able to attend the conference, so they can then access that content, find out what things were interesting to them, and then maybe get them signed up for the conference the following year.
And actually, you can also use that as a reason for your supervisor to attend the conference. That you provide additional value to the company and speaking about a couple of the talks that you have seen there, with that, just increase the values that you are bringing to the company. And that's a very, very nice thing also from a learning perspective, because repeating things really helps to remember things and learn things better, to think things through better and have another follow-up discussions with your colleagues about a couple of topics and relevant topics. That's absolutely helpful. In terms of closing the loops on with people, I think that is also very, very good thing, because that builds your brand in terms of being trustworthy and being and following up on things. Something that lots of people will very, very much appreciate. And I need to say, I primarily use LinkedIn for that.
Yeah, me too.
Any other things that you do in terms of following up on the conference?
I guess the other thing is if you have any conference-specific feedback, then this can either be provided through the app or we send out a feedback form after the conference. That it's really great if people can fill that in. So, like I said earlier, it really helps us to understand what people have enjoyed about the conference, what they'd like to see done in future years, sessions that were particularly helpful, any session ideas that you might have for following years are also always appreciated.
Yeah, that's a very, very nice thing. Also, don't forget to rate all the different sessions, because that helps the scientific committee to see what are good sessions, what are important topics. Of course, people see which sessions are more attended or less attended. That's also kind of voting by feet, so to say. But I think it's not a conference where only the, let's say, most prominent topics like estimates are presented. There's also some niche topics, and I think that's quite fair, because there's always also some statisticians that work on these niche topics and need to know about that. So
we want to be representative and have something that everybody will enjoy.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that if you're working in pharma or CRO, since this conference is 100% applicable to you. It's actually one of the problems that I usually have. There's 3 sessions in parallel and picking the one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of these conference sessions, looking forward into the scientific agenda for this year, what are your personal highlights?
Oh, wow. Well, this is a tough question. Maybe we should have done a whole podcast just on this. I mean, we've talked about it already a little bit. One of my main highlights is the 1-minute poster review session. That's always one I look forward to. And then I guess because it's always close to my heart, I always look forward to the Career Young Statistician session, where we have the Career Young Statistician speaking. This is where I sort of made my PSI conference speaking debut at the London 2014, I think it was, conference at the Tower Hotel. So it's always held a special place in my heart. So if you're presenting in that session this year, maybe we'll find the 2024 PSI conference chair at that session. Who knows? And this year we actually had so many career young statisticians submit abstracts that we don't just limit them to that one session. So we had, I think, about 20 career young statisticians submit abstracts this year.
Wow.
And accepted 13 of those 20, which I really just shows the strength of the young talent in our industry. And PSI are very keen to kind of support that young talent and get people into their first conference presentation in a slightly less intimidating environment with your peers. So I always really look forward to that session.
Yeah, in terms of the acceptance rate, just remember the acceptance rate is about 50% for oral presentations at PSI, because there is usually 3 sessions in parallel across the 3 days. There's of course the keynote speakers, and as you said, this 60 seconds presentations from the poster, as well as a regular town hall, which don't have competing sessions. So that limits a little bit the space for contributed presentations. So there's pretty fierce competition regarding that.
It is. We had 73 abstracts submitted this year, and we had such a tough time within the scientific committee trying to, pick our favorite abstracts, because, well, basically it's quite difficult to get us all to agree on anything, because there's always somebody who has that one abstract that they champion for. And actually this year we've added a 4th parallel stream on Monday so we could accept more abstracts, because it was just so difficult to cut it down.
That's awesome. Yeah. Any other personal highlights you have for this year?
So we have a session on portfolio decision making, and I think this is shaping up to be a really interesting session. So I know there's an abstract on sort of decision making for single arm studies, and having matched external control arms, and that's something that I have worked on in the sort of reasonably recently, actually. I was involved in a submission that was very similar to that, so I'm really looking forward to hearing other people's views on that. There'll be stuff in that session about sort of the optimal allocation of R&D budgets, group sequential methods and their impact on portfolio budgets. So I just think it's really good to have that sort of oversight of where your company is heading with your drug, rather than just looking at the one study by itself. By looking at the group of studies, where is your portfolio heading? What's the company focusing on? How can statistics help with that? I'm really quite excited about that session.
Yeah, that sounds very, very interesting. And of course, we have the 2 keynote speakers. One of which is actually also appearing here in the podcast. So if you have not listened to that one, it's the one that went live a couple of weeks ago with Robert Cuff, who will talk about medical statistics. And in the podcast interviews that I have done with him, he also provides a little bit of insight what his presentation will be about. It's probably not a standard presentation, so that will be awesome as well.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be really interactive and fun. I'm really looking forward to Robert Cuff's talk. He's an excellent speaker and an excellent presenter, so I have high hopes.
Okay. With that, thanks so much for this very, very good interview. We talked about how to prepare for the conference, how to best network through the conference, what you can do in terms of flexing your introvert style if you're an introvert, how you can follow up after the conference in terms of closing the loops with those that you met at the conference, exchanging business cards, following up on LinkedIn. And also we talked about a couple of highlights of this year's PSI conference, which the early bird deadline will end soon. So just go to psiweb.org, check out for the conference and register there. It's very, very valuable. In terms of convincing your supervisor, there's actually a LinkedIn article about convincing your supervisor, as well as a podcast episode that we did about that last year for last year's conference. But most of these things are really applicable to this year's conference as well. So just scroll back in your podcast app to beginning of 2018, and there you will find a a podcast episode that is about 10 reasons how to convince your supervisor to support you for traveling to the conference. Okay, with that, thanks so much, Kate.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the conference in June.
Me too. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
This show was created in association with PSI. Next week, we have an interview with Maria and Sharul from the PSI Benefit Risk SIG. A SIG that is very, very close to my heart because I was the chair of it for quite some time. Thanks for listening today, and as usual, please visit theeffectivestatistician.com to find the show notes and learn more about our podcast to boost your career as a statistician in the health sector.